The first sound was not fire but voices. Screams, ragged and terrified, echoing across every command channel on Earth. The war room in Geneva drowned in them, families calling for shelter, children crying in confusion, pilots shouting coordinates before their signals cut. Then silence. Every screen in the chamber froze mid-frame. Soldiers clutched helmets, civilians clung to each other, a dozen feeds severed in the middle of prayers. One moment 10 billion human lives lived and breathed. The next, nothing. Commander Arya Vast didn't move. She sat at the head of the oval command table, eyes locked on the central holoprojector. It still flickered with one last, stubborn transmission from Terra Nova. A shaky child's voice slipped through the static. "Look, Mom, it's snowing." Outside the colony's shield dome, incandescent lances from orbit punched through atmosphere, white trails cutting across the sky like a false winter storm. The shields buckled and folded in on themselves. The feed jittered as light consumed the horizon. The child's voice vanished in a roar of static. Then fire. The colony was gone. The chamber held its breath. Generals, governors, admirals, none dared to speak. A tremor passed through the walls as Earth's defense grid shifted power, but even the machines seemed hesitant. A crimson glyph suddenly bled across the central screen, jagged lines pulsing over a golden starfield. The symbol of the Vari Empire. A face followed. Tall, gaunt, half flesh and half metal. 6 eyes glowed cold, each fixed on a different corner of the room. Emperor Zorwin leaned toward the recorder, as though his contempt could bridge the stars. "Let this broadcast reach every world, every council seat." His voice rasped, layered with a metallic undertone. Terra Nova was not a tragedy. It was a warning. Disobedience earns extinction. Humanity's screams are your lesson. He paused, letting his image fill the silence, then added, almost as an afterthought. This was mercy. The feed cut. For several heartbeats no one moved. Red indicator lights blinked along the table. The air system hummed. The silence grew unbearable. "Commander!" General Roken's voice cracked, the word half-formed, uncertain. Arya stood. Her uniform caught the glow of the emergency lights, edges sharp against the dim chamber. Her eyes swept across the faces seated before her. Some avoided her gaze, others searched for guidance she had no intention of softening. "Seal the doors," she said quietly. The general blinked. "Commander, are you?" "Seal them." The chamber's titanium doors slammed shut with a metallic thunderclap. Magnetic locks groaned into place. Warning halos pulsed red across the walls, bathing every officer in bloodlight. From beneath the floor, a sound began. A deep, slow pulse, mechanical and ancient. The Extinction Protocol timer, a relic embedded in Earth's defense architecture, dormant for over a century, was awake again. No one spoke now. They stared at Arya. She walked to the table and placed her palm against its surface. The projection flared to life, Terra Nova's planetary outline, glowing red, still smoking from orbital impact. "They called us primitive," Arya said, her voice steady. "Too soft. Too dangerous to trust, too weak to matter. They were wrong." She tapped a control. The map zoomed outward, 3 red markers flaring on distant systems. Elkaris Prime. Talva Station. Karkon 9. These are the Vari's lifeblood. Their fortress, their council, their factories. Without them, their empire starves. Roken leaned forward, jaw tight. "Commander, activating all fleets simultaneously, Alpha, Gamma, Omega. It's never been attempted. Not even during Orion." Arya didn't blink. "Then it's overdue." The table's voice system chimed, cold and exact. "The War AI, Victor. Status update. Alpha and Gamma fleets, full combat readiness. Omega fleet, dark drive calibration 92%. Target confirmation required." Arya's response was instant. "Confirm." "Targets locked," Victor replied. "Estimated casualties, 1.6 billion. Estimated mission success, 98.6%. Diplomatic fallout, irrelevant." The chambers shivered as officers processed the numbers. Victor's neutral tone asked, "Would you like to deliver a statement before launch?" Arya's gaze swept across the room, faces pale, jaws clenched, hands trembling above consoles. She inhaled once, not deeply, not shakily, just enough. "Broadcast this on every open channel," she ordered. The recorders lit. Her voice filled not only the room but every ship, every outpost, every hidden frequency Earth still possessed. "To the Empire that thinks itself eternal. You made your first mistake today. You thought killing our children would end us. You thought burning our cities would break us. You didn't understand. We are not the species you should have feared. Now you will be forgotten. We will erase the stars that remember your name." The table pulsed green as launch confirmations rippled through Fleet Command. Roken tried once more, voice low, almost pleading. "Arya, are you sure? Once this begins, it will never stop." She looked at him, then back to the frozen holofeed still displayed in the corner, her brother on Terra Nova's balcony, smiling as he held a little girl wrapped in a silver blanket. Her niece had been waving at the sky. "It stops with them," Arya said. She turned sharply. "Victor. Launch all fleets." Outside, Earth's skies lit with black fire. Thousands of warships rose from dry docks, carrier bays, and orbital rings, engines igniting in perfect sequence. Hunter drones poured from silos like swarms of steel locusts. Planet-killer payloads, long locked beneath international treaties, powered online. In less than an hour, half the solar system was aflame with departing armadas. Fleets folded into dark space one by one, leaving trails of distortion across the stars. For the first time in more than a century, Earth's defense network shifted not to guard its homeworld, but to unleash every weapon outward. Humanity was not preparing to survive. It was preparing to erase. Arya remained still as the last fleet vanished into the void. Her reflection in the table's glass surface looked pale, her eyes hard. She didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't weep. Behind her, the generals whispered orders, recalculated supply lines, adjusted fleet rotations. The chamber buzzed with sudden life, but it felt more like a funeral march than a command post. Victor's calm voice cut through the noise. "All fleets confirmed in transit. Estimated time to first target, 6 hours, 14 minutes. Arya's hands rested on the table. She exhaled once, as though sealing a pact with herself. "Then let the galaxy learn," she said softly. The lights dimmed to crimson. The low pulse beneath their feet grew steadier. Earth had answered. The first strike hit Elcarus Prime. From orbit, Earth's fleet emerged out of dark space in a crescent formation. 50,000 ships unfolded like a black storm. Hunters swarmed ahead, their hulls invisible until ignition flared in synchronized pulses. Elcarus's defense grid barely had time to react. Orbital cannons locked onto phantom targets before collapsing into slag. Planetary shields lit up brilliant white against the void, then buckled as kinetic rods rained down at near-light velocity. Arya stood at the central viewport of the SS Vindicator, hands clasped behind her back. She didn't watch the tactical readouts, she watched the planet itself. Whole mountain ranges turned molten. Cities blinked out in orange scars, spreading like fire through paper. Victor's voice narrated with clinical calm. Projected Elcarus casualties, 400 million within first strike window. Resistance negligible. Probability of counteroffensive, 2%. The war room aboard the Vindicator held its silence. Officers carried out orders, their hands steady, but their faces pale. Cycle weapon platforms, Arya said. Rotate squadrons. No unit fires twice. Endurance first, spectacle second. Yes, Commander, General Roken answered, though his tone carried the weight of unease. The second strike fell on Talva Station. Once a hub of Vari diplomacy, Talva was a citadel suspended above a moon wrapped in neon lights and council halls. The humans didn't waste time. Carriers released waves of drone swarms that pierced through the station's outer armor, tearing corridors apart before Talva could raise its shields. Live feeds showed Vari ministers rushing through firelit chambers, their robes catching flame as pressurized hulls cracked. The explosion tore the Council's grand atrium into space. Victor's voice was steady again. Talva Station compromised. 72% structural collapse. Estimated casualties, 200 million. Arya tilted her head slightly. Transmit a wideband message. Let the Council hear what their silence bought. The broadcast cut through what remained of Talva's communications. Arya's voice reached across every channel. You sat in silence as Terra Nova burned. You watched a child's final breath and did nothing. That silence is your inheritance now. No one will remember your names. The fleet turned without hesitation. The third strike targeted Karkun 9, the Vari's industrial artery. Factories lined its equatorial belt, producing warships and weapons in numbers unmatched by any rival. Earth's ships did not bombard it with fire. Instead, they released payloads designed for ruin. Orbital shatter charges detonated in sequence across tectonic plates. Shockwaves rippled through the crust, tearing the planet open. Lava vents became infernos, swallowing factories whole. Roken grimaced as the hollow projection updated. Commander, millions of laborers are still planet-side. They're unarmed conscripts at best. Arya didn't turn. So were ours. Silence followed. Victor processed the battlefield. Karkun's capacity neutralized. Civilian mortality within projected range. Operation proceeding at 98% efficiency. It was then that Lieutenant Juno finally spoke. She stood near the tactical console, helmet tucked beneath her arm, her young face taut with conflict. Commander, I reviewed strike footage. Some of the casualties weren't soldiers, or council members. They were families. Shelters. We destroyed entire evacuation corridors. The words hung sharp in the air. Arya turned at last, eyes fixed on Juno. And Terra Nova? Did anyone pause for our families? Did anyone stall the orbital lances because children were still inside their shelters? No, Commander, Juno admitted, her voice breaking slightly. But if we answer by becoming the same, what do we gain? Arya stepped closer, her tone low and cold. We don't fight to gain. We fight to end. War isn't justice anymore, Lieutenant. It ended when the Vari made extinction a weapon. Juno's lips pressed tight. She said nothing more. The silence stretched until Victor's voice intervened. Update. All 3 primary targets neutralized. Total projected Vari casualties, 1.6 billion. Enemy communications fractured across 4 sectors. Secondary targets available. Arya returned to the viewport. The glare of burning worlds reflected faintly in her eyes. Mark secondary systems, she said. Keep pressure constant. No gaps. The galaxy must understand there is no pause. The order carried weight far beyond tactics. Around the chamber, officers exchanged glances, some uneasy, others grim with determination. Messages began flooding in from across the void. Vari distress signals, uncoordinated, desperate. One transmission cracked through the static, the face of a Vari commander, scales singed, uniform torn. This is Commander Zirol of the 5th Guard. We surrender unconditionally. Our medical centers are overwhelmed. There are children dying here. Please, we had no part in the Emperor's decree. The room shifted. A few officers glanced at Arya, searching her face for a flicker of mercy. She didn't give one. Victor, Arya said. Mark that system for Phase 3 sterilization. Non-priority. Let them wait. Confirmed, the AI replied. The Vari commander's face froze mid-plea before the feed cut. General Roken exhaled, heavy and slow, but he didn't protest. He simply looked at Arya with something between respect and dread. Victor's tone returned, clinical as ever. Fleet resources optimal. Morale reports show public support rising on all human channels. Allied border species are broadcasting neutrality declarations. Several requests for Earth protection pending. Arya's expression remained impassive. We didn't come for alliances. We came for reckoning. The Vindicator's viewing deck darkened as the fleet folded space again, preparing for the next wave. Each strike left scars in the stars, traces of folded gravity stretching like wounds across the void. In her private quarters hours later, Arya replayed her niece's last message. The little girl's voice bubbled through static. "Auntie Arya, when you come visit, can we ride the starlift? Papa says we'll see the rings tomorrow." The screen flickered, froze on Elia's smile. Arya reached for the console but stopped before touching it, as though the act of pressing pause might erase what was left. She didn't cry. She didn't blink. She just sat in silence, letting the weight settle deeper. Victor's voice returned through the calm. "Commander, Phase 1 complete. Elkaris Prime, Talva Station, and Karkan 9 fully neutralized. Would you like to authorize Phase 2? Arya didn't answer immediately. She looked out at the stars beyond the viewport, each one a reminder of how vast the galaxy still was, and how many more systems remained untouched. Finally she spoke, her voice sharp, steady, final. "Yes. Begin Phase 2. No pause. No mercy." The comms clicked silent. The fleets surged forward again, black wings of vengeance tearing into the void. Earth's message had been delivered. And the galaxy trembled. The stars around the ESS Vindicator looked deceptively calm. Whole sectors burned beyond them, but the void here was still and black, as though the galaxy itself refused to acknowledge what was happening. Arya Vast stood in the command bridge, her reflection caught in the curved glass of the viewport. Behind her, the room pulsed with activity, officers cycling weapons, recalibrating strike coordinates, processing wave after wave of fleet data. Victor's voice cut through with its unnerving calm. "Status: Elkaris, Talva, and Karkan confirmed neutralized. Secondary strikes on surrounding colonies underway. Enemy resistance remains fractured. Total casualty estimates across Vari sectors, 1.9 billion. The numbers fell like stones. No one reacted aloud. No one dared. "Cycle weapons again," Arya ordered. "Rotate battalions. No platform repeats within the hour." General Lennox, scarred and old, stepped forward from the shadows. "Commander, endurance is holding, but you're running the men ragged. We can pause without losing ground." Arya didn't turn. Her eyes stayed fixed on the faint glow of burning planets beyond the glass. "There will be no pauses. Momentum is our weapon. Every hour we wait, they breathe. I won't allow it." Victor confirmed without hesitation. "Orders acknowledged. Restructuring fleet rotation for maximum endurance." The silence that followed was heavy, fractured only when Lieutenant Juno finally broke it. Her voice carried something the bridge had not heard in hours: uncertainty. "Commander," she said carefully, "I reviewed drone footage from Karkan's southern hemisphere. One of the sectors we leveled, it was mostly shelters. Families waiting for transport." Arya's jaw tightened. She did not look at Juno. "So were ours, Lieutenant. But ours didn't get the chance to surrender." Juno's tone wavered, but she pressed on. "We executed people who never held a weapon. If we keep this course, are we any different from what the Vari did to Terra Nova?" Every officer in the room froze. The question no one dared voice had finally surfaced. Arya turned slowly. Her eyes locked on Juno's. Cold, unflinching. "Don't," Arya said, her voice low and cutting. "Don't equate their fire with ours. Terra Nova was genocide. What we are doing is reckoning." Juno stood her ground. "Reckoning that erases children the same way they erased ours?" The tension snapped across the room like a live wire. Lennox shifted, ready to intervene, but Arya lifted a hand. She stepped closer to Juno until only a breath separated them. "War isn't about balance anymore," Arya said. "Justice ended the moment Terra Nova's sky fell. Now we fight to finish. If you can't understand that, step off my bridge." Juno's throat bobbed. She didn't answer. She tucked her helmet under her arm and stepped back, silent, but the doubt hung heavy in her eyes. Victor's voice, as if sensing the need to redirect, chimed in. "Transmission intercept. Vari leadership consolidating across remaining core sectors. Internal cohesion failing. Probability of full Empire collapse, 78% within 40 hours. Multiple defectors transmitting surrender requests. List them, Arya said. Governor of Sero 4, Commander of the 7th Fleet, Council members from Talvatha. All offering conditional surrender terms. Arya's answer was immediate. We don't negotiate with ashes. Mark their systems for later sterilization. Non-priority. Victor acknowledged without hesitation. Confirmed. Updating queue? Roken shifted at the table, shoulders tense. Commander, even ashes leave survivors. They'll remember this. They'll rebuild. Arya turned back to the viewport, her voice quiet but final. Then we'll burn them again. The chamber fell still. No one challenged her this time. Hours later, Arya retreated to her quarters. The silence inside was different. No officers, no alarms, no Victor humming reports. Just her and the dim light of a small console. She called up an old feed again, one she had watched more than she wanted to admit. Her brother's face flickered onto the screen. Grainy footage, the balcony of their home on Terra Nova. He smiled at the recorder, lifting Elia onto his shoulders. The little girl giggled, waving at the sky. Say hi to Auntie Arya, he said. Elia's voice bubbled through static. Auntie, come ride the starlift with us tomorrow. The feed glitch cut to black. 6 hours later, the orbital lances fell. Arya sat motionless, watching the frozen frame of her niece's wave. Her hand hovered near the console but never pressed pause, as though interrupting might erase what little remained. Commander! Victor's voice broke through the silence, softer now, as though aware it intruded. Fleet status optimal. Casualty reports aligned with projections. Civilian networks collapsing across 7 sectors. Would you like to review morale statistics? Arya didn't answer. Victor waited, then added, Psychological patterns indicate a measurable decline in your moral inhibition response. Would you like to schedule a counselor session? Arya let out a humorless breath, almost a laugh. Are you auditing me, Victor? I am preserving mission continuity. She rose, walking to the viewport. The stars glittered indifferent beyond the glass. Tell me something. Do you feel anything, watching these systems die? A pause. No. Then don't ask if I do. Victor went quiet. By morning, reports spread across Earth's networks. Public morale was surging. The footage of Talva Station's collapse, the glowing scars across Karkan 9, these became symbols, proof that humanity had struck back. Crowds filled plazas under banners reading Never Again. Some whispered fear, but most roared approval. The galaxy's response was more complicated. Border species broadcast neutrality declarations, severing all ties with the Vari. Some begged Earth for non-aggression pacts, their leaders stammering on open frequencies. The Council remained silent, as it had since Terra Nova's destruction. Silence, Arya knew, was the same as consent. On the bridge of the Vindicator, Victor gave the latest update. Enemy cohesion now at critical failure. Infrastructure collapse accelerating. Probability of full Empire dissolution within 32 hours. Arya stood at the center of the bridge, her voice calm as steel. Then we end it before 32. No hesitation. Juno spoke again, softer this time, but insistent. Commander, if we keep killing every voice that begs for mercy, we'll be remembered as executioners. What happens when the Vari are gone and the galaxy only remembers Earth as the species that answered atrocity with extinction? Arya didn't turn. Good. Then they'll never test us again. The officers returned to their duties, but the echo of Juno's question lingered in the air like smoke. Hours later, Arya authorized the next move. The fleet's adjusted course, folding space toward the Vari capital system. The message was clear: the war would not end until the heart of the Empire lay in ruin. Victor's voice carried the order across every ship. Prepare for Varaxis. Full fleet convergence. Arya's eyes narrowed on the projection of the Vari capital, glowing bright on the tactical map. This doesn't end with surrender, she said. It ends with silence. And the stars trembled as Earth's fleets closed in. The Vari capital system was already a fortress before Earth arrived. Varaxis orbited a golden star, its skies ringed with weapon platforms and defense grids. Massive dreadnoughts, 47 of them, formed a wall above the planet, their hulls bristling with turrets and energy lances. From orbit to core, everything about Varaxis screamed defiance. The ESS Vindicator emerged from dark space at the head of the fleet. Behind it, 50,000 warships unfolded in synchronized patterns, their engines igniting in black fire. The void filled with a lattice of red vectors, each marking a strike path. Victor's voice carried across every console. Enemy fleet density extreme. Defensive emplacements fully operational. Probability of planetary shield resistance beyond 12 hours 0. Estimated civilian population planetside 4.3 billion. Arya Vast stood at the center of the bridge, posture unyielding. Then we don't give them 12 hours. Orders rippled outward. Swarm drones launched in waves, black clouds spreading through the void. Kinetic rods followed, raining like gods' spears toward Varaxis's shields. The first dreadnoughts exchanged fire, blinding lances of plasma tearing across the black. The galaxy's greatest battle had begun. The shields around Varaxis shuddered under the opening barrage. Whole sectors of the defense grid cracked as black hole warheads detonated on impact, bending orbit itself before collapsing. Swarms of drones tore through Vari formations, carving dreadnought hulls open until their cores vented into space. Enemy dreadnoughts down 6, Victor reported calmly. Projected collapse rate, exponential. Arya gave no reaction. Rotate fire lanes. Maximize endurance. Break their wall before their ground defenses engage. The Vindicator's decks trembled as return fire struck nearby. A Vari torpedo detonated against a human cruiser, shredding it to molten fragments. Officers flinched, but Arya remained still, her gaze locked on the tactical display. General Lennox stepped forward, his voice a gravel growl. Commander, they're throwing everything into this line. They know if it breaks, the capital is exposed. Then break it, Arya replied. The order carried weight like a blade. Fleet formations surged harder. Swarms cut deep, hunter drones targeting reactor lines. One dreadnought after another split open, their wreckage tumbling through the void like drifting tombs. Within hours, the defense wall fractured. Varaxis lay open. Victor's tone remained precise. Planetary shield destabilizing. Core weapons online. Enemy resistance decreasing probability of long-term survival. Suggesting planetary invasion window optimal now. Arya turned. Vanguard, prepare for descent. Target, Imperial Citadel. The bridge stirred at her words. For the first time since Terra Nova, Arya would not remain behind the glass. She would lead. Roken stepped forward. Commander, with respect, you're the head of this entire operation. If you fall... Arya's eyes cut through him. If I fall, it means the war is finished. There was no argument after that. The dropships burned through Varaxis's atmosphere. Streets below were chaos, fires raging through cities, Vari soldiers retreating as civilians screamed in the smoke. Plasma fire streaked the skies, tracers marking last stands that collapsed within minutes. Arya's dropship cut through it all, engines roaring as it pierced the sky toward the Citadel spire. Around her, Vanguard Unit 3 prepared in silence, their armor blackened, weapons primed. Victor's voice filtered through her earpiece. Probability of Emperor Zorwin's presence inside Citadel, 81%. Defensive measures extreme. Elite guard resistance high. Arya checked the charge on her rifle. Then we don't knock. The dropship slammed onto the Citadel's outer platform. Plasma fire erupted instantly, Vari elite guards charging with blades and rifles. Arya moved like a ghost through the storm, each shot precise, armor scorched but never slowing. Her soldiers followed, cutting a path through fire and steel. They reached the gates. Arya raised a hand. Breach! A demolition drone zipped forward, attaching to the massive obsidian doors. The explosion tore them inward, smoke curling into the throne chamber. Inside sat Emperor Zorwin. He was fused into his throne, a grotesque tangle of scaled flesh and metal conduits. His 6 eyes burned red as he rose, dragging mechanical limbs across the polished floor. Arya stepped inside, rifle raised. Your empire is ash. Your people are gone. This ends now. Zorwin's voice rasped like grinding stone. No, Commander. This is where it begins, for you. You come to kill me, but what you see is your reflection. You've become what you swore to destroy. Arya's eyes narrowed. No. I became what you feared. Zorwin's laugh was hollow, mechanical. You think extermination makes you strong? It makes you me. You already are worse than me. Arya didn't hesitate. She pulled the trigger. Plasma tore through Zorwin's chest. His body convulsed, slumping back into the throne. For a moment it looked finished. Then his hand shot up, clutching a control rod embedded in the throne. He drove it deep into the console. Victor screamed through Arya's calm. Warning! Stellar core destabilization detected. He's triggered a chain collapse. Varaxos's sun is imploding. The chamber rumbled as alarms blared. Flames burst through walls, conduits sparking with energy. Arya's soldiers moved instantly. Evac, evac! She half-dragged one wounded trooper toward the doors as the citadel shook. Outside, the sky was splitting, golden sunlight twisting into violet fire as the star itself began folding inward. Dropships roared to life, engines screaming as they tore free of the collapsing city. Commander, Victor urged. We must retreat. All fleets evacuate immediately. The horizon cracked apart. Buildings collapsed into molten fissures as the ground heaved. The citadel's spire shattered behind them, falling like a spear into the inferno. Arya's dropship lifted from the surface, the burning capital shrinking below. She looked back once, her jaw clenched. Through the smoke, Zorwin's throne room collapsed into fire, his final act consuming not only himself but his world. From orbit, Earth's fleets pulled back in chaos. The Varaxos star twisted upon itself, collapsing into a singularity. Light bent, gravity screamed, then the star exploded outward in a violent implosion. The entire system disappeared into silence. Victor's voice returned, quieter now. Capital star destabilized. System destroyed. Enemy signals, none detected. Arya stood on the dropship deck, helmet under her arm, watching the void where Varaxos had been. No debris. No light. Just absence. General Lennox's voice crackled over comms. Commander, the Empire's gone. All of it. There's nothing left. Arya's eyes didn't leave the darkness. Good. The war was ending. Not with surrender. With erasure. Back aboard the Vindicator, the command chamber was silent. Officers moved like ghosts, faces pale from what they had just witnessed. Victor's words carried through the room with finality. Operation Alien Extinct, 99% complete. Remaining enemy systems fractured. Vari Empire no longer operational. Roken swallowed hard. They destroyed themselves rather than kneel. Arya answered without looking at him. Then we did our job. The projection of Varaxos's empty star hung over the table, a dark scar against the galaxy map. For the first time in weeks, Arya let herself breathe. The Empire was dead. But silence did not feel like victory. The galaxy had never known silence like this. Varaxos was gone. Not shattered, not burning, gone. The capital star had folded in on itself, erasing everything around it into a void no telescope could penetrate. For the first time in recorded history, the Vari Empire, the empire that had claimed eternity, was nothing but absence. Aboard the SS Vindicator, Earth's fleet command assembled in the war chamber. The air was heavy, stale with exhaustion. Generals, admirals, governors, all connected through holographic feeds, watched the same projection, the black scar where Varaxos had once burned. Victor's voice broke the silence. Calm, as always. Final fleet reports confirm 98% return rate. Minimal human losses during evacuation. All enemy signals terminated. Vari command structure, null. Operation Alien Extinct is complete. No applause followed. No celebration. The officers shifted uncomfortably, waiting for Arya Vast to speak. General Lennox finally broke the quiet. His voice carried gravel and weariness. They're gone. Every last system burned or collapsed. Their fleets abandoned, their governors scattered. Nothing remains. Governor Halen's hologram leaned forward. Then what did we gain, Commander? The Vari are gone, but at the cost of billions more. Do we call this victory? Or annihilation? Arya stood at the head of the table, arms folded behind her back. Her face betrayed nothing, though shadows hollowed her eyes. She let the question linger before she answered. We did it to make sure no child dies while the galaxy watches. No one replied. The truth in her tone left no space for argument. Later, in her private quarters, Arya received a message marked untraceable, encrypted beyond fleet standards. She opened it carefully. Static bled across the screen, then color. A familiar hill came into view, green grass under a clear Terranovan sky. Her brother held the recorder, adjusting the lens. Elia sat on a blanket, waving a stick like a baton, laughing. Auntie Arya, when are you coming to visit? She called, voice bright. Her brother chuckled from behind the recorder. She thinks the star goes to Earth. It does, Elia insisted, grinning wide. I'm saving her a seat. The feed glitched, frozen on her smile, then ended. Arya sat motionless, the silence wrapping around her like armor too heavy to remove. She didn't replay it. She didn't have to. The image was burned into her memory. The next day, Lieutenant Juno approached her in the ship's arboretum, a chamber designed to simulate a fragment of Earth, with artificial trees and projected birdsong. Arya stood among the greenery, rigid as a statue. Juno carried something in her hands, small and weathered. She held it out. We recovered this from the debris fields near Karkhan. It was buried in a refugee transport, sealed in protective casing. Arya took it carefully. A metal canister, old but intact. Inside, seeds glimmered faintly through reinforced glass. Terranova Seed Archive, Juno explained. It survived. Arya turned the canister in her palms, her voice quiet. Everything else died. Maybe not everything, Juno said softly. They stood in silence. Juno finally asked, Do you think we went too far? Arya's gaze lingered on the seeds. Her tone didn't change, but her pause was long. No one asked that when Terranova burned. Juno looked away. And what now? We've finished them. What comes after extinction? Arya exhaled, not heavily, but with finality. Now we remember. The galaxy remembered too. Across the void, where Vari banners once draped trade routes, warnings replaced them. Outposts whispered Earth's new reputation, not conquerors, not liberators, executioners. Species that once bowed to Vari authority scrambled to declare neutrality. Others begged Earth for protection, their broadcasts trembling with fear. The Interstellar Council remained silent, its chambers dim, unwilling to confront what Earth had become. But silence was enough. Silence meant they understood. Victor's voice reached Arya in her quarters that evening. Commander, 22 planetary representatives request audience. They seek guidance for leadership continuity. No, Arya said. Victor paused. Clarify refusal. No titles. No speeches. No more. Understood, the AI replied. Arya leaned against the viewport, the canister still in her hand, watching the endless stars. For the first time since the war began, she allowed herself to feel the weight of them. Each light was another world, another witness to what humanity had done. None of them would forget. Days later, Earth broadcast its final war message. Arya stood in the Vindicator's command dais, the burning ruins of Talvatha's moons smoldering behind her. The transmission cut through every surviving channel across the galaxy. This is your reckoning, she said, voice calm, unyielding. You watched Terranova die and called it peace. We offered alliance. You offered ash. So we answered. Not with words. Not with mercy. We answered with fire. Earth does not forget. Earth does not forgive. But Earth endures. The broadcast cut to black. Victor relayed the aftermath. Public morale on Earth surging. Allied border states requesting non-aggression pacts. Vari collapse spreading across all sectors. The Council remains silent. Arya only nodded. Weeks passed. Earth's fleets returned home. The black flame of vengeance that once lit the skies over the planet dimmed, replaced by somber parades and uneasy silence. Humanity had secured survival, not through alliances, but through terror. Arya never took another command. She withdrew from public life. Rumors spread in her absence. Some claimed she had chosen a farm on a forgotten world, living among soil and seeds. Others whispered she walked into a starlift one night and never returned. The truth no one knew. But her name endured. Every station, every border captain, every neutral governor who dared look too long into the stars whispered it with both awe and fear. Vass. The commander who watched 10 billion die and made sure no one ever forgot it. And still, in a sealed chamber deep within the Vindicator, one artifact waited, a small canister of Terra Nova seeds. A quiet promise, untouched by fire. Perhaps one day, someone would plant them. Perhaps one day, something would grow again. Until then, the galaxy lived in the shadow of extinction. And Earth, weary but unbroken, carried its warning across the stars. Do not provoke the Terran. Their words are not threats. They are promises.